Rahim Allani, Managing Director of OCI Groups here in Toronto. We're going to touch on a few Canadian opportunities. We're going to discuss some cannabis sector plays this morning, but it's hard to avoid this Lightspeed move this morning. Rahim, a name we've talked about many times on the show here. A big move down, big miss for them. They reported 20% in New York, obviously a dual-listed stock here in Toronto as well.
Yeah, no, that's a name that we've talked about as sort of one of the new tech darlings in Canada. They've done a bunch of acquisitions. There was a short report out a couple of weeks back, and when we did speak about it, and we saw the move on what the stock did based off of that report. And we have to go through the numbers to see how it lines up with respect to what the short report was saying. But it's definitely a big move down to the downside, 20%. It's looking like it's going to open up down 20%. So, in the short report, they were saying if you're making all these acquisitions at a time when your client base is restaurants and small businesses, they don't necessarily correlate with given what's happening with COVID and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see what management says if they're having a conference call on it. Yeah,
I mean, an impressive daily chart still on the year, but we're all the way back to a couple months ago, early summer kind of levels for Lightspeed. Let's go to cannabis. We had JP Morgan out, it was yesterday, I think, late in the day yesterday, restricting trading on some cannabis-related stocks in the U.S. That put pressure on some cannabis-related ETFs in the U.S. What do we make of all this?
You know, it's an interesting move. Credit Suisse sort of did something similar a little while back, and now that they've gone ahead and done this, they've given everyone until November 8th to unwind trades and start to unwind trades. Any long shorts, they're going to sort of restrict going forward. There was a big ETF that was down 26% this year, and I think you'll start to see some of that because if the U.S. can't participate in some of these names, it has a big effect, right? So it's been a volatile year. You look back to a year ago today or around this time, a lot of the cannabis names moved up significantly on the fact that people assumed banking acts would change in the U.S. and how all of that would move. And a year onwards, I think people are saying, well, nothing's happened yet, and what's going to happen now? So you look at the bumps that came then and where we are now. Some of the names that we'll talk about today are near their 52-week low. They're still great numbers, but they're at their 52-week lows relative to where they were a year ago today. Yeah, so some earnings obviously coming through in the cannabis space as well. So we'll touch on a few names here. Just to kind of, throw in your back pocket, keep in mind, have a look at every once in a while. Green Lane, which I believe is dual listed? It's on NASDAQ. Oh, okay. So a NASDAQ name, Green Lane. Tell us about that one. Yeah, it's one of those ones that we thought we'd put on to talk about some of the names that are just American listed. They're in the accessories space. So if you believe sort of as an ancillary, you want to get into the cannabis instead of the grow, you want to look at the touch points around packaging and around vapes and around accessories. They merged with a company called Kushco as well. Sales of $40 million in the last quarter. And 20% gross margins, $15 million cash in the bank. But you look at the chart, they're sitting around $1.80, I believe, which is around their 52-week low. So depending on which way you view the accessory space in cannabis, that might be one to look at. Okay, we'll move on. Acreage, another one that we've mentioned numerous times on the show. I mean, a CSE listed name here in Toronto, but lots of news around that one as well. Yeah, same thing. So they've got their quarter coming up November 10th. So next week you may want to keep an eye on it, depending on which way you view it as well. But trading around $2 off basically near its 52-week low when it got up to $9. They have a huge play in New Jersey and New York. They've got to grow in New Jersey. They've got the most number of dispensaries that you can have in New Jersey. So, again, if you view the cannabis trade as the dispensary angle, the multi-state operators are places that people are looking to invest for sure. But depending on which way you view the certain states that they're in. So if you like New Jersey, New York, that might be an opportunity there. Again, trading at the 52-week lows. And there is we were just showing the OTC listing there for Acreage. So there is U.S. availability. Village Farms, another one. So Village Farms, they're sort of in that midpoint. They're trading around $9-10. Had gone as low as $6, up into the $25 range, and decent volume. Vertically integrated on the farming side, so that's where their sort of impetus came from. They were on the farming side and grew that business. Then they added in with the produce side. Then they got into the CBDs and the cannabises of it all. Pure Sun Farms is one of the largest grows in Canada that they own. Interestingly, though, they got their first shipments going to Australia, which could be, a play, given that that's a whole new market for them. Yeah. And they acquired a company in Netherlands, and it's one of 10 companies that's got applications in with the government of Netherlands. So, one of the homes of traditional cannabis, as it were. Village Farms is making a move there in the Netherlands.
We've mentioned a few on the show before, and I'm talking about the real estate side of things. We were talking before we came on, there's so many retail stores now that the real estate side of this industry is quite large.
Yeah, so this is a name that we picked up a long time ago. I think we may have talked about it in the show, IIPR. It's a bunch of pharma guys that started the business out of San Diego, and essentially just on the REIT side. So if you're looking at the real estate side, they come in, they give you a bunch of money for your real estate and lease it back. And they've been doing that for a number of years, and the stock's gone between 104 between 140. It's trading about $250 right now, 200,000 shares a day, $6 billion market cap. Just in the last quarter, they put out 5 new lease products, $54 million of revenue, $1.50 is their dividend, net income about $1.20 a share. So very strong numbers. And again, if you believe in the real estate angle of it, then that's an ancillary way to get involved in the cannabis trade.
And it certainly doesn't seem like it's slowing down at all as far as the expansion of these the real estate side of things. Just to recap, the JP Morgan story we talked about. What was the date again? That
November 8th.
So November 8th. So we'll mark that down coming up next week.
Yep.
Again, JP Morgan going to start restricting some trading for cannabis-related symbols. Rahim Allani, Managing Director of OCI Groups here in Toronto. Pleasure as always.
Anytime.
Good to see you.